Hello, welcome, thank you for visiting again, and in this video I'm going to go through the procedures to follow if your chainsaw has flooded. And what do I mean exactly by flooding? Well, it's an excess amount of fuel getting into the engine, and this generally prevents the engine from starting or running. And there can be many reasons for the cause of flooding, but some of the most popular ones I've come across are when the choke is in the on position for too long. Sometimes this can be stuck in this position unknowingly to the operator, basically a mechanical disconnect between the choke lever and the actual choke butterfly or the choke plate. So in this case, no matter what position the lever is in, the choke is in the on position. Or sometimes the operator has unwittingly left it on too long or applied it when it's not needed, such as when the chainsaw's already warm, when it's been running for a little while and then the chainsaw's been turned off, and then a few minutes later when there's an attempt to start it again, bearing in mind the engine's still warm. Sometimes the operator will put the choke on and then try and start it, but this only floods the engine because the engine's already warm and doesn't need the excess fuel. Another cause of flooding can be when the operator has mistakenly left the on-off switch in the off position and then tried to start the machine to pull the starter pull cord repeatedly until there's too much fuel gone into the engine, and of course it would never start because it's in the off position and it just fills the engine full of fuel. And one less common reason for flooding is when there's a problem inside the carburetor where it's not regulating the fuel properly. As I've said, these are to name a few of the most common causes I've come across. To begin with, of course, we'd only suspect that the engine's flooded, and assuming that it has, there are two main ways we can deal with it. One with the use of tools and one without. And so we'll take a look at each of these, and to save a little time getting tools out initially, we'll use the no tools method first. And this is simply making sure that the stop switch is in the on position and that the choke is not activated, the chain brake is of course on, and that the throttle trigger is pulled in fully, so it's fully activated, which means of course that the throttle butterfly or the throttle plate is fully open, allowing a maximum flow of air through the carburetor and into the engine. Then we can attempt to start the machine. Now this is going to take quite a few pulls of the pull cord because we're trying to get fresh air through into the engine and flush some of that fuel out so that it's more of a favourable ratio of air and fuel mixture in order to start. And as and when it does start, it will initially be very smoky because this is the engine burning up excess fuel, but it will only take a minute or two for this to clear. And so if we've tried this method and all is okay, great. But if it hasn't worked, then we need to move on to the next method using the tools. And when I say tools, by the way, all I really mean is the use of a spark plug wrench. Okay, so now we're going to have to expose the spark plug. So we'll take this top off here, and for this particular brand of chainsaw we remove the air filter, and then of course we can remove the spark plug cap. We need to remove the spark plug, and then once we've took the spark plug out we can take a good look at the end of it. I realise it's quite difficult to see there, but the end of this spark plug is quite damp with fuel, so it would suggest flooding. So the objective now is to dry this spark plug, and usually a few good blows like this can dry it. If not, then we can use an airline, but that's okay. And now we need to consider the cylinder. Inside there obviously there's flooding, there's a lot of fuel that's unburnt. Another thing I would take a look at this point is I'd take a look just inside the inlet and make sure there's no more excess fuel, and to tip it out like this, if there is, this isn't too bad. Also make sure that the choke lever is operating the choke butterfly, and for the next part make sure the machine is turned off, and that's to make sure that no electric is generated up to the top of the cap here. We'll want to remove that fuel from the cylinder outwards. So the best way to do that, pull the starter pull cord and the fuel inside the cylinder can emit from the spark plug hole. But one thing we do not want to do is to breathe in any of this mist as it comes out. So we've cleaned both the spark plug and the cylinder, so we'll put the spark plug back in, and then we'll build the machine back up. But the one thing we do not need to do when we start the machine now is we do not need to use the choke because we've got enough fuel inside the cylinder, so we need to turn the machine on. And so like before, if possible, make sure that the throttle is open on full when you start the machine in order to get as much air as possible into the cylinder in order to equal things out there with all that fuel that's already in there. I know we've removed some by cranking the machine earlier when we took the spark plug out, but there's always some in there that needs further removal. Now next time we try and start the machine, we should get a different result. That is, of course, if flooding was the only issue and it only required this very basic procedure. And as I'm sure you can appreciate, the diagnostics and repair of chainsaws is vast, and so I could only include the basics here. But if you do decide you want to follow these procedures, I have a free download here for you. It's printable, A4 size, and you can take it in the workshop with you. It's basically covering all that I've covered in the video. I've left a link to it in the description below where you will will be taken through to my website where you can download this from. And please let me know what you think of this video, whether it's helped or not. And I'll be back soon. Thank you for watching.